please say your name and spell your name?
Okay. Kathie, Kathie Zumbro, Zumbro.
Great, thank you. So Kathie, thank you so much for doing an interview here today at Marriott Library. I'm super excited to get to talk to you a little bit and for us to hear some of your history with the UMFA docent program. And I wonder actually if you might just, before we go, I ask you a couple questions, if you just want to share a little bit about just kind of what your history is with the program. So when did you start?
With the docent program?
Yeah, with the docent program at the UMFA.
I go back. I've come full circle. I started out as a volunteer in probably the late 1979, 80, and then I became a docent volunteer in, I think, the class of 1985. So I was a docent for 30 years.
A docent for 30 years, and then you went, you
became emeritus when the museum closed in 2016. Okay. And then I guess I'm kind of a docent, emeritus volunteer now because I still help with some of the volunteer. I'm available to be a volunteer.
Yeah, thank you.
So
thank you so much. So the first question I'd like to ask you is, what initially drew you to the docent program? Why did you decide to become a part of things?
Well, like I said, I was a volunteer. I was up here doing some volunteer activity, and I kept getting called. They had something called a Treasures and Trifles sale, kind of a fundraiser. People would donate items, and then it was a glorified garage sale. And I getting called to come unpack dirty boxes. I thought, there's got to be more to it than this, and I've always been interested in art. I was there one day, and Sue McCoy, who was the educator at the time in the department, had a group of docent students, trainees, and I thought, that sounds really interesting. And the program was a year of docent training and art history, which is what I really wanted. The commitment then was for 2 years touring as a docent. I thought, I can do that. And I kept doing it for 30 years. There was always something new to learn, and always a carrot out there in front of me to entice me to spend another year as a docent. So
that's great. And that was in the Park building?
No, I was not in the Park building, but I was in the one that was in the art and architecture. That's where I started. Yeah, I didn't go back quite as far as the Park building.
I should know my history.
But Frank Sanguinetti was the director, and he was the original. Yeah, I heard a lot about the kids running up the steel stairway in the Park building, and so there was still a very important part of the museum's beginning, and the seed collection.
Yeah. All right, thank you. So as you think back about the tours you gave during your time as a docent, are there any tours, groups, or gallery experiences that stand out to you now?
Oh, there again, it's a hard pick looking back over that many years. Things that stand out, not specifically, but just when you have a group of children and one of them or two of them just really get it, engage, ask questions, and they will tell the others to be quiet. And they will see things. I've learned something, I think, from every tour I ever gave, because the kids will find something in a painting or in a sculpture or something that's totally off the wall sometimes that I hadn't seen or hadn't thought about or didn't know, And so if you can get them going and have a good cross relationship or cross conversation, even with fourth graders. My best experiences, I think, that really stand out and almost bring tears to my eyes is when I did the memory tours for the visual or the memory impaired, because they were just such a joy. A lot of them had no art museum history at all or experience. Preparation for dinner, they would just talk about things that long-term memory. The short-term was fading or gone, but the long term and just different things in the colors would remind them of a dress they had as a child or something they dressed their children in, or it didn't necessarily have to be specific to a piece of artwork. And I had one gentleman that went through the whole tour. I couldn't get him to talk, he didn't engage until we got down to the lobby and they were ready to go. And he talked to me about working at Kennecott, and there had been a painting of the mine, and he drove one of the trucks or remembered the train. He started talking, and he hadn't said a thing. Yeah. So experiences like that stand out. I can't, some people that, well, when we first moved to the new museum, early on they had an exhibit of the Princess Diana dresses.
Oh.
And, that got a lot of people in that didn't know the museum was even on the campus. It was the new museum when the new one opened, the Price Museum.
Mm-hmm.
And so I still have people come, oh, yeah, I was there. I remember the Diana dresses. Well, please come back because we have other things.
That's right.
I wasn't all that impressed, particularly with the Diana dresses, but they are art, and they were beautiful dresses, and they really, art, fashion design is an art, so.
And I like what you're saying, too, about bringing people, different shows will bring people to the museum that maybe haven't visited before. That's kind of a lovely opportunity.
And if you get someone in a group that says, oh, I was here, or I'm going to bring somebody back, I didn't realize. I have friends after 30 years of a docent that still think I'm a docent at the Natural History Museum. They just don't know how hard as we all work to try to make it, a destination.
That's right.
But I think it's become more that way in 30 years. A lot has changed as far as getting more people knowledgeable.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I was going to ask you, I'm going off script here, but I was curious, as you were talking about a few specific works on those memory tours, have there over the years been certain pieces that just for you've loved to have conversations around?
Oh.
Like, are there certain go-to works for you?
What is it, the Whirlpool?
Mm-hmm.
That one. And there are a couple of pieces. There's it hasn't been on view for a while, and I don't remember the name, but it's in the porcelain. It's the one with the magpies.
Oh.
And there is, actually, it goes all the way around. The painting, the limbs to the tree go all the way to the back of the painting. It's good size. Mm-hmm. And there was one, my understanding, there are very, very few of them. And there's one in the museum in it's losing me now. I want to say Shanghai, and we weren't there, but anyhow, beautiful museum, and I'm down on the floor in this museum trying to see if this one is like ours, where the limbs and everything go clear around to the back. But that one has a unique story to it too. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a cute story, Chinese fable.
Yeah.
So pieces like that, and like I say, the Whirlpool. I like the Tondo with the mother and child, the baby, the finch in the painting. And they're just, over the time, there's been certain pieces that, and maybe a connection again to where we've been and the countries and museums that we've seen that make the pieces here more important to me. Because I think, we've got a good collection.
That's right.
Representative.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that. So to talk just a little more broadly about art, which is obviously something that has meant a lot to you over the course of your life, I would imagine, certainly your time, connected to the UMFA. What do you think the role is that art plays in our lives? And what role does an art museum play?
I think people don't realize that art is all around them. And that it plays an important role in everything they do, the buildings that they're in, the clothes that they're wearing, the advertising, for sure. Mm-hmm. The people don't understand. And, of course, now with the media and the different ways there are of promoting advertising and all sorts of things. But I think a museum's duty, that's not probably the word, responsibility, whatever, is to make people realize that this is art and that it is affecting your life. You don't have to come to a museum to find that out, but I think a museum focuses on those things, and maybe when they leave, it broadens their perspective or opens up their mind to things that they didn't. I mean, the new museum's got, 5 different patterns of brick? And, people come in and don't realize that, but when they leave, they look for it. Yeah. Or they look for things I hope that that's the objective. That, to me, that's what all museums. A lot of times when I gave a tour and you tell the kids not to touch anything, you say you've been to the museum, the zoo, all their hands go up. Do you feed the animals? No. Why not? Because they're rare and we might hurt them. Same reason you don't touch the paintings or the art in the museum. And all of a sudden, they realize that the zoo is a museum and that the museum the art museum is something of a zoo. You know, we have rare things in there that are to be treasured for their rarity, and the fact that there are no more specifically pieces being created.
Right.
You know, when you say original, that's what it means.
I like that connection. I've not thought of it that way. I like that.
Well, and the bones and stones at the Natural History Museum,
Right.
the same way they're very old, but they play a part. I mean, there has always been art. You know, you look at the things over there, the cave art and the beautiful beadwork, and the way they did. You know, so they all kind of go together in a way.
It's true. We have similar aims too. Yeah. So if you were to talk to somebody who was thinking about becoming a docent or is new to being a docent, what kind of advice would you give them?
Well, the first thing to tell them is it's a commitment. I think it's a terrific commitment. I've never begrudged any of my time that I spent up there because, like I say, I learned something every time. But I think you have to be tuned into that fact that, you know, you're taking on a responsibility that says I will be there for the trainings, I will be there for the tours, and I will represent it when I leave the museum too. You know, I've tried to teach people. Like I say, I've got friends that still don't know I'm a docent at the museum, but anyhow, I was. But that, and then I think being able to interact with people, being able to get a rapport with, you know, groups, different groups, all kinds of people come into the museum. So, I don't know. Commitment is the main thing. I mean, it's kind of all-encompassing, I think. It's just a commitment. It's a pledge of time and resource and energy and just, I don't know. I feel blessed. I feel like I need to pay the museum for the time I spend there because I've learned so much. And I was new to Salt Lake. It was a place for me to find a common ground, you know, as some place where I belonged that I wouldn't necessarily have felt like I belonged as much without the museum. I mean, it's my best friends are docents or people that were somehow over the years involved with the art museum. It
really does bring together community and create community. I hear other docents say things similar to that. Yeah.
Well, and I was impressed at the beginning. It didn't seem to be a particularly cliquey group. There were a lot fewer docents in those days. I mean, you knew everybody, class before and class after, because there weren't that many. But the teams helped, the daily team. You do find, you know, a certain camaraderie with the daily team. But I've only been on 2 in 30 years. Yeah. But you do get a chance to know everybody, and I do feel like it's a very embracing group of women, and I'm now glad to say some men that you know, are part of the group.
Thank you so much. Okay, one last question. This is the complete this sentence. So complete this sentence. Being a docent means.
Well, I think I've pretty well answered that, but you know, it means so much to me. Like I say, it's my home. I never, you know, I've always looked forward to coming. I always look forward to being there. There's always a new experience, new people to engage with. So there are programs that have come and gone. I really did enjoy Museum in the Classroom. I understand now why, you know, it's been dissolved. But I spent probably more of the 30 years involved with that. Yeah. And I just enjoyed going to the classrooms. And crowd control is not my long suit, so they were all in their seats. And there was a certain amount. You could pick out in those classes who you're going to have as troublemakers when they came to the museum, or who you were going to have that really wanted to learn something. And I would try to take that back to a daily team if I had a class where I knew there was a child that really, really wanted to see something specific in the museum, or really was interested, and it wasn't just, you know, an hour away from the classroom. And there are those in every group. The adult groups are the same way. You can tell the ones whose wife, you know, the husbands whose wives drug them to the museum. It's usually the men.
Well, Kathie, thank you so much for talking today. And, you know, you talked about commitment. We can't thank you enough for the commitment
my great pleasure
to the UMFA. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks for
it.
asking me.